Sometimes your heart knows what you want before your brain figures it out. Sometimes one moment can change two people's lives forever. Clara Dawson runs her ranch by herself in 1800s Montana. She's strong, doesn't need anyone, and likes it that way. Silas McGraw lives alone in the mountains, surviving on his own. He's tough, doesn't talk much, and stays in the wild hills. When they meet at a trading post, something surprising happens. Silas holds Clara's rough, working hands and says words that shock her. "I can see our sons in the future." Two people who always lived alone start dreaming of a family together. But falling in love on the tough frontier is hard when winter storms, bad guys, and old hurts get in the way. Can two people who learn to survive alone learn to live together? Before we go on, tell us where you're reading from. And if you like this story, hit subscribe because I've got something extra cool for you tomorrow. The morning sun lit up the Montana sky with orange and pink as Clara Dawson stepped onto the creaky porch of the ranch house her dad built 23 years ago. The old wooden boards squeaked under her worn boots, waking her up better than any rooster. She stopped, breathing in the cool mountain air that smelled like pine trees and hinted at winter coming. She looked over the land that made her who she is. At 28, Clara was strong in a quiet way, toughened by facing storms, both real ones and life's challenges. Her brown hair, with bits of silver from years in the Montana sun, was tied back in a simple braid. Her hands, rough and scarred from fixing fences and working with ropes, showed she never asked for help unless she could give it back. Those hands had pulled calves from their moms in freezing winters, fixed broken gates, and held her dying dad as he told her he was proud of her. The Dawson Ranch wasn't the biggest around, but it was honest land worked by honest hands. 200 cows ate grass her grandpa first claimed when Montana was just a dream for people back east. Her dad, Thomas Dawson, grew the ranch by knowing the land like it was part of him. When he died from a fever 6 years ago, leaving Clara alone at 22, everyone thought she'd sell the ranch and move east to find a husband and an easier life. Clara had other plans. She walked to the barn, her spurs jingling softly on the hard ground. The cows were already heading to the creek, knowing where to find water and grass better than most people she'd met. Her horses, a strong mare named Duchess and two geldings, Storm and Thunder, whinnied their morning hellos from the corral. Storm, a gray Mustang with smart eyes, was her dad's favorite horse and now her best buddy on long rides across the ranch. "Morning, you gorgeous critters," she said, scratching Duchess's ears. The mare leaned into her touch, a small sign of trust that meant more to Clara than all the sweet talk from men in town trying to charm her. Animals didn't lie, didn't make promises they couldn't keep, and didn't expect her to be anything but herself. Morning chores were like a quiet prayer for Clara. Feed the horses, check the water troughs, look for wind damage on the fences. Each job tied her to her family, who worked this same land and faced the same struggles. Her dad's pocket watch, tucked in her vest, ticked against her chest, reminding her of time passing and the weight of keeping the family name going alone. By the time she finished checking everything, the sun was high, burning off the morning dew, and the day was getting warm. Clara unsaddled Thunder after a quick ride to the north pasture and headed to the house for breakfast and coffee strong enough to wake a bear. The kitchen, with its old stove and her mom's blue-flowered plates in the corner cabinet, was the only soft spot in her practical life. She was cooking eggs and bacon when she heard a wagon coming. Through the window, she saw Doc Henderson's familiar horse and his rickety medical wagon, which had seen better days. Doc often visited far-off ranches, fixing everything from broken bones to sick babies. But it was weird for him to show up so early unless something was wrong. Clara stepped onto the porch as Doc climbed down, limping on his left leg, which got hurt by a horse kick 3 winters ago. He was a skinny man in his 60s with silver whiskers and kind eyes that had seen too much pain to judge anyone. "Morning, Clara," he called, grabbing his medical bag. "Everything okay out here?" "Fine as ever, Doc. Why are you here so early?" Doc looked at her like he was checking for a fever. "Just checking on folks before the weather gets bad. Sheriff Walsh said he saw strange tracks near the Peterson place. Might be nothing, but with cattle thieves around, I thought I'd warn the outlying ranches." Clara's chest tightened at the mention of cattle thieves. Last year, the Mitchell Ranch lost nearly 50 cows to thieves who hid at night and vanished before anyone could follow. For a small ranch like hers, losing that many could mean losing everything her family worked for. "Thanks for the heads up, Doc." I'll keep my eyes open. You might want to get some help out here. Clara, young Jimmy Patterson's looking for work. And he's a good kid. Clara had known Jimmy since he was a little kid. He was a good guy, now 24, with strong shoulders and an honest face, but she'd seen how he looked at her during church. He'd had a crush on her for years, but never said it outright. Hiring him would make people think she was interested, and she wasn't. I do fine on my own, Doc. Always have. Doc nodded, but his face showed a small frown. He'd been her dad's friend and delivered her 28 years ago. He knew how stubborn the Dawsons were. Being independent is great, Clara, but even the toughest horse needs help pulling a heavy load sometimes. After Doc left, Clara stood on her porch, watching his wagon disappear over the hill. The loneliness that usually felt like freedom suddenly felt like danger. 200 cows were years of hard work. Losing them could ruin her, and despite what she told Doc, she wasn't sure one woman alone could protect everything that mattered. The afternoon brought Mrs. Ellen Patterson, Jimmy's mom and the closest thing Clara had to a friend in their spread-out community. Ellen was a sturdy woman in her 50s who ran her house, helped deliver babies, and somehow knew everyone's business like it was her job. "Afternoon, dear," Ellen called, climbing down from her buggy. "Brought some of that apple butter you love." Clara smiled for real for the first time that day. Ellen was her mom's best friend, and her visits brought a warmth Clara didn't admit she missed. "Come in, Mrs. Patterson. I'll make coffee." They sat at the kitchen table, and Ellen's sharp eyes noticed everything. The stack of bills on the counter, the rifle now hanging where her dad's family photo used to be. "Heard Doc Henderson stopped by," Ellen said, stirring sugar into her coffee. "Something about cattle thieves?" "Just a heads up. Strange tracks near the Peterson place." "Nothing serious yet?" Ellen made a sound that said she was worried anyway. "You know, Jimmy's been helping the Andersons with their harvest. He's strong and good with ranch work." "I'm sure he is," Clara said carefully, hearing the matchmaking in Ellen's voice. "He asks about you, you know. Worried about you being out here alone." Clara set her coffee cup down hard enough to rattle the saucer. "I'm not alone, Mrs. Patterson. I've got horses, cows, and enough work to keep me busy." "That's plenty for anyone." Ellen looked at her with the same sharp eyes Jimmy got from her. "Being strong doesn't mean being by yourself, Clara. Your parents didn't raise you to live like a hermit. My parents raised me to take care of myself and my land. That's what I'm doing." Ellen reached across the table and put her soft hand over Clara's rough one. "Child, there's a difference between taking care of yourself and closing yourself off from happiness. Your mom would want you to have what she had, a partner, a family, a reason to build more than just survival." After Ellen left, Clara stood in her parents' old bedroom, staring at her mom's jewelry box. Inside, wrapped in old silk, was her mom's wedding ring, a plain gold band that stood for 25 years of love and teamwork. Clara never tried it on, barely touched it. Like holding it might mean choosing a path she wasn't ready for. That evening, Clara checked the animals one last time, locked the barn, and went back to the house as the first stars came out. The kitchen felt bigger, emptier than when her dad was alive. She ate bread, cheese, and leftover bacon, standing at the counter, watching the last light fade from the mountains. Tomorrow, she'd go to Fletcher's trading post, a day-long trip for supplies and news. She'd leave early, get it done fast, and be home before dark, a routine she'd mastered running the ranch alone. As she got ready for bed, she stopped at the window facing the mountains. Somewhere out there lived hermits and mountain men who chose total loneliness over people. She wondered what made someone pick that life, what pain made them think being alone was better than connecting with others. She realized she might be asking herself the same thing. Her dad's pocket watch ticked on the nightstand, counting time. At 28, no husband, no kids, no plan beyond keeping the ranch going. The Dawson name would end with her unless something changed, unless she was brave enough to risk the independence she'd fought for. But tomorrow would bring new challenges and possibilities. For now, surviving another day and keeping her dad's legacy was enough. The morning air was chilly, hinting at fall, as Clara loaded her wagon for the trip to Fletcher's. Storm snorted, his breath puffing in the cold dawn. Her list had the usual stuff: salt, coffee, bullets, and fabric to fix her work clothes. Fletcher's trading post was where 3 mountain trails met, a spot where trappers, ranchers, and travelers traded goods and gossip. The post was a solid log building that had survived 20 winters with a big porch for hanging out and a chimney promising warmth. The trip took Clara through beautiful country. Pine-covered hills rose around her, their tops dusted with early snow. Eagles soared above, gliding easily in a way Clara envied. The quiet felt friendly, not lonely. The mountains spoke through the wind in the trees and the distant calls of elk. She reached Fletcher's as the sun lit the logs golden. Several horses were tied up, including a huge black stallion she didn't know. It was strong, built for tough mountain trails, but its proud look suggested its owner wasn't just any wanderer. Clara tied Storm to the post and grabbed her list, nodding to old Pete Murphy, who was studying a new trap like it was a diamond. Pete had been in these mountains 30 years, and his wrinkled face held stories of brutal winters. "Morning, Pete. How's trapping this season?" "Okay, Clara girl. Beavers are good up Willow Creek, but something spooking animals higher up. Might be nothing, might be trouble." Inside Fletcher's, the smells of leather, tobacco, and wood welcomed Clara like old pals. Sam Fletcher, a giant man with a laugh that shook the rafters, waved from behind the counter, weighing beans for someone she couldn't see clearly. Clara Dawson, right on time as always. "Got that coffee you like?" "Came in last week." "Much obliged, Sam. I'll take 10 pounds if you've got it." As Clara walked to the counter, the other customer turned and she looked up, way up, into the most striking gray eyes she'd ever seen. The man was huge, over 6 feet tall, with shoulders that seemed to fill the room. His dark hair reached his collar and a full beard covered his face, but his eyes grabbed her. Smart, kind, and somehow familiar, though she'd never met him. He wore buckskin clothes made with skill, and his gear showed he lived by knowing the wild. A knife with a bone handle hung at his side, and a rifle peeked over his shoulder. But despite his size, he moved gently, like he was careful not to scare anyone. "Ma'am," he said, tipping his hat politely, his deep voice rumbling like it came from his boots. "Sir," Clara replied, suddenly aware her work clothes and messy hair showed exactly who she was. A woman who worked hard all day. Sam grinned, loving the moment. "Clara, meet Silas McGraw." "Silas, this is Clara Dawson, runs the Double D Ranch south of here. Best rancher around, man or woman. Silas McGraw." The name fit him. Solid, simple. Clara noticed his hands as Sam talked. They were big, rough from work, but clean and careful. A man's hands told you who he was, and these said he was capable, honest, and gentle. "Nice to meet you, Miss Dawson. Heard good things about your ranch. Just Clara, please. And you've got me curious, Mr. McGraw. I don't think we've met before." "No. Ma'am, we haven't. I keep to myself up in the mountains." A mountain man. Clara had heard of men like him, loners who picked the wild over people, living by hunting and knowing the land better than anyone. Most folks thought they were a bit crazy from too much time alone. But looking at Silas, crazy wasn't what she saw. His gray eyes held deep smarts, a thoughtful look that said he chose loneliness for peace, not because he couldn't handle people. Sam worked on Clara's order, leaving them to talk. The trading post had other people, Jim Anderson from a nearby ranch, a couple of trappers, but it felt like just her and this giant mountain man. "The high country must be pretty this time of year," Clara said, making small talk while Sam weighed her coffee. "It is. Snow's falling above 10,000 feet. Gonna be a tough winter, I think." "You read the signs?" Silas nodded. "Animals are growing thick fur early. Squirrels are hoarding nuts like a storm's coming. Nature's got its own schedule, and it's usually right." Clara liked that he noticed things like she did on the ranch. Her cows were acting funny, moving to sheltered spots earlier than usual. "My cattle are restless, heading to cover early. Smart animals listen to the mountains. Smart people do, too." There was something heavy in how he said it, like he meant more than just weather. Clara felt a tingle like the air before a storm. Sam finished her order and helped Jim, leaving Clara and Silas by the counter. Neither seemed in a rush to leave. "You run your ranch alone?" Silas asked, his voice calm. "I do. For 6 years since my dad passed." His face changed. Not pity, which Clara hated, but understanding that surprised her. "Takes a lot of strength to live alone like that," he said softly. "I bet you know about that." "Living in the mountains by yourself?" "I do." His gray eyes looked at her in a way that should have made her nervous, but didn't. "But lately, I've been thinking being alone isn't the same as being lonely." Before Clara could ask what he meant, Silas did something wild. He took her hands in his, big, rough hands that felt warm and oddly familiar. "Miss Clara," he said, his deep voice sure, I can already see our sons in the future." The words hit Clara like a punch. She stared into his eyes, looking for a joke or craziness, but saw only honesty. The noises of the trading post, Sam's laugh, coins clinking, boots on wood, faded away. "What did you say?" she whispered. "I know it sounds nuts," Silas said, still holding her hands gently. "I know it's not something you say to someone you just met, but looking at you, I see them clear as day. Strong boys with your green eyes and stubborn chin, working this land, carrying on what you've built." Clara felt dizzy. No man had ever talked to her like that, acting so sure about a future that was just in his head. She should have been mad, ready to snap back like she did with other men who got too bold. Instead, she looked at their joined hands and felt something shift inside her. Like a lock opening she didn't know was there. "Mr. McGraw," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "You don't know me. I know you're strong enough to run a ranch alone, but kind enough not to crush people with that strength. I know you've got sadness from losing your dad, but haven't let it make you bitter. I know you're scared to depend on anyone because people leave, but you're brave enough to keep going." Every word hit like he could see right through her. Clara pulled her hands away, stepping back until she hit the counter. "You're talking nonsense," she said, but she knew it wasn't totally true. Silas didn't chase her or push. He just stood there, his gray eyes patient, maybe hopeful. "Maybe I am," he said quietly. "But I've spent 8 years alone in those mountains, Miss Clara, and I've never seen anything as clear as those boys." "Your boys." "Our boys." The silence stretched like a bridge neither was ready to cross. Clara grabbed her packages, trying to stay calm. "I need to get back," she said. "It's a long ride, and I want to be home before dark." Silas stepped aside, but as she reached the door, he said, "Clara." She turned, even though she didn't want to. "When you're ready to stop being scared of what you want, you'll find me." Clara left Fletcher's like she was running from something, loading her wagon with slightly shaky hands and pushing Storm harder than he deserved. The ride home was a blur of confusion and feelings she couldn't name. Halfway back, she realized she was crying, not from sadness or anger, but from something bigger and scarier. For the first time in 6 years, Clara Dawson had met someone who saw not just the tough rancher she'd become, but the woman she might still be. Clara spent the next 3 days telling herself Silas McGraw was just a weird mountain man with a big imagination and too much nerve. She worked harder than ever, fixing fences that were fine, organizing the barn that was already perfect, and riding the ranch borders so often Storm seemed worried about her. But no amount of work could erase those gray eyes or the way he sounded so sure when he talked about their sons. His words stuck in her head like seeds. Growing questions she wasn't ready to face. On the 4th morning, Clara stood in her parents' bedroom, staring at her mom's jewelry box, her hands shaking a little. She'd avoided this room since her dad died, keeping it just as her parents left it. Her mom's hairbrush on the table, her dad's shirt in the wardrobe. But today, something pulled her to the box. She opened it, pushed aside earrings and a brooch, and found her mom's gold wedding ring, simple but full of 25 years of love. She held it up to the light, watching it shine. Her parents met at a church dance when her mom was 19 and her dad 22. Everyone said it was love at first sight, the kind Clara thought only happened in books. Her dad proposed after 3 months, and they were together until death took her mom, then him 6 years later. Clara slipped the ring on, surprised it fit perfectly. She stared at her hand, wondering what it'd feel like to wear it for real, to wake up knowing someone else's happiness was tied to hers. A horse outside snapped her out of it. She put the ring back and looked out the window, expecting Doc or a neighbor. Instead, Jimmy Patterson got off his horse, walking to the house like he'd been practicing what to say. Jimmy was a good guy, everyone said so, hard-working, honest, reliable. At 24, he had strong shoulders and rough hands from farm work, and his brown eyes were kind, the kind most women would like. Clara had known him since they were kids, watched him grow from a skinny boy to a man who helped his mom run their farm and worked for other ranches. She also knew he'd had feelings for her for years but never said it outright. She met him on the porch, noticing how nervous he was, twisting his hat. His hair combed, shirt clean, boots scraped free of mud. "Morning, Clara. Hope I'm not bothering you." "Not at all, Jimmy. What's up?" Jimmy shifted, clearly nervous about what he'd planned to say. Ma said, "Doc stopped by about those cattle thieves. Got me thinking you might need help out here, with winter coming and all the extra work." Clara's stomach sank. She'd been dreading this talk, knowing it was coming but hoping it wouldn't. That's kind of you, Jimmy, but I manage fine on my own. Always have. I know you do, Jimmy said fast. Nobody doubts Clara Dawson can handle anything. But even tough people need help sometimes. I know cattle, horses, ranch stuff. Ma said she can spare me through winter if you need an extra hand. It was a good offer. Jimmy was skilled, trustworthy, and free to help. Any smart rancher would say yes, especially with thieves around and winter coming. But something stopped Clara. I appreciate it, Jimmy, but taking on help means being responsible for someone else, and I'm not ready for that. Jimmy's face fell, but he kept going. It wouldn't be charity, Clara. I'd earn my keep. I've been thinking about building something of my own, and working here would teach me a lot. Clara knew he wasn't just talking about work. He was offering to be a partner in business and maybe more. She felt stuck between being kind and being honest. Jimmy, you're a good man. Any woman would be lucky to have you, but I'm not looking for a partner, in business or anything else. Because of him, Jimmy said quietly. Clara felt her face heat up. What? The mountain man. Folks in town are talking about what happened at Fletcher's. Sam said he talked about seeing your future sons or some crazy stuff. Clara was stung that her private moment was town gossip, though she knew small towns couldn't keep secrets. What happened at Fletcher's is my business, she said sharply. Clara, you don't know this guy. Nobody does. He could be dangerous, crazy, or worse. All we know is he lives alone up there like some wild hermit. What I do on my land with my time is my call, Jimmy Patterson. Jimmy raised his hands, backing off. I didn't mean to upset you. I'm just worried. We all are. This guy shows up, says wild things to a woman he just met, and then vanishes back to the mountains. That's not normal. Clara wanted to defend Silas, but Jimmy was right, it wasn't normal. Men didn't talk about future kids with strangers, and the fact that she wasn't mad about it probably said something about her own head. I can take care of myself, Jimmy. I always have. I know. But taking care of yourself doesn't mean you have to be alone forever. Jimmy's honesty almost broke her. He was offering everything a sensible woman should want. Security, friendship, a life like her parents had. But his touch didn't spark anything in her, and that wasn't his fault. He deserved a woman who could love him fully, and Clara was starting to think she might not be that woman. I appreciate your concern, Jimmy, but I need you to respect my choices, even if you don't get them. Jimmy looked at her for a long moment, and Clara saw the hope fade from his eyes. He nodded, putting his hat back on. If you change your mind about needing help, you know where I am. After Jimmy left, Clara stood on her porch, watching him ride away. She felt her loneliness more than she had in years, mixed with memories of gray eyes, gentle hands, and words that felt like a vision. That evening, as she checked the ranch, she stopped at the northern fence near the mountains. Somewhere up there, Silas McGraw lived his lonely life, maybe thinking about her, maybe not. Clara leaned on the fence, staring at the snowy peaks. The wild up there was harsh, bears, mountain lions, storms that could kill. It took a special person to live like that, finding peace in loneliness that would break most people. What made Silas choose that life? What pain sent him to the mountains? And what did he see in her at Fletcher's that made him say such a bold thing? Clara stayed there until dark, stars twinkling above. When she went back to the house, she knew her neat. Safe life had changed because of a stranger's words, and no amount of work could bring back the certainty she used to have the first sign someone was watching. Clara came 2 weeks after meeting Silas. She was checking the stock tank near the north pasture when Storm's ears perked up, alert. She looked where he was staring, toward the trees at the edge of her ranch. At first, she saw only pines and shadows. Then, for a second, she spotted movement, too big for a deer, too careful for wind. It vanished before she could focus, but she felt watched, like an itch she couldn't scratch. She finished her chores quickly, glancing at the mountains but seeing nothing else. By noon, she almost thought it was her imagination, fueled by sleepless nights thinking about Silas. That changed when she found the carved bear. It was on her porch railing, impossible to miss. The little figure, about 3 inches tall, was carved from pine with amazing skill. Every detail, the bear's strong back, its alert eyes, was perfect. The wood was smooth and shiny like honey in the sunlight. Clara picked it up, surprised by its warmth. No note, no name, but she knew who left it. Only one person had the skill and nerve to leave a gift on her porch without asking. She should have been mad at Silas for sneaking around, but instead she admired the bear's beauty, turning it over in her hands. It showed patience and care, so different from the big man she met. She brought it inside, set it on the kitchen table, and kept glancing at it while cooking, cleaning, and planning the next day's work. Sleep was tough, filled with dreams of gray eyes and gentle hands, and the feeling that her private ranch wasn't so private anymore. The next morning, she found more proof of Silas. The north pasture gate, which had been creaky for months, was fixed with new leather hinges that worked perfectly. The repair was so good it looked original, done by someone who knew ranch work and leather. Clara ran her fingers over the smooth hinges, amazed. "I know you're out there," she called to the trees, feeling silly but needing to say it. "You might as well show yourself instead of sneaking around like a ghost." Only the wind and a hawk's cry answered, but she felt like Silas heard her. That afternoon, Ellen Patterson came by and noticed the bear right away. "That's a cute little thing," she said, picking it up. "Where'd you get such a fine carving?" Clara blushed. "Someone left it on my porch." "No note. Someone with real talent," Ellen said, studying the bear's details. "Anyone I know?" "I'm not sure," Clara said, but her blush gave her away. Ellen's face softened. "Clara, be careful. Strange men leaving gifts and watching from the shadows. That's not normal. How do you know he's watching?" Clara asked before she could stop herself. "Because Jimmy saw him yesterday evening, sitting on his horse up on the ridge above your north pasture. Big guy on a black stallion acting like he belonged there." Clara felt both thankful for Ellen's concern and annoyed that people thought she needed protecting. "I appreciate Jimmy's worry, and yours, but I can handle whatever comes up." "I'm sure you can, dear, but you shouldn't have to do it alone." Ellen touched Clara's hand. "There are people who care about you. Don't let pride stop you from accepting help." After Ellen left, Clara paced her house, feeling trapped by everyone's worry. Nobody understood how she felt. She wasn't scared of Silas, surprised, unsettled, maybe excited, but not afraid. The man who carved that bear and fixed her gate didn't seem dangerous. But what did he want? Why did his presence feel like a promise, not a threat? As evening came, Clara made a bold choice. She cooked a simple meal, beef stew, bread, coffee, and packed it in a basket with plates and cups. If Silas was going to keep watching her ranch, it was time to talk about what he was up to. She saddled Storm and rode to the north pasture, where the gate swung smoothly. The sun set behind the mountains, painting the sky pink and gold. At the fence, she got off and called, "Mr. McGraw, I know you're there and I know you hear me. I brought dinner, and it's time we talked about what you're doing." Nothing happened for a moment. Then Silas stepped out from the trees, leading his black stallion, moving slowly like he didn't want to scare her. "Evening, Miss Clara," he said when he reached the fence. "That's real kind, though I don't deserve it for sneaking around your land." "You haven't been on my land," Clara said, surprised by her own boldness. "But you've been watching me from the fence line. That needs explaining." Silas tied his horse and took the plate she offered, moving carefully, like he knew a quick move might spook her. "Can't deny the watching," he admitted. "Been keeping an eye out, making sure you're safe. Heard about cattle thieves around and your gate was sagging. Seemed wrong to let good work go bad. As for the bear, I had time and carving helps me think." "Think about what?" Silas was quiet so long Clara thought he wouldn't answer. Then he said, "About a woman brave enough to run a ranch alone, but kind enough to feed a stranger who's been lurking like a lovesick fool." Clara's heart beat faster, and she was glad the dark hid her blush. "Silas, what you said at Fletcher's about seeing our sons, that was a wild thing to say to someone you just met." "It was," he agreed. "Probably scared you silly, and I'm sorry, but I've spent 8 years trusting my gut. When I saw you, held your hands, something just clicked, like finding a piece of a puzzle I didn't know was missing." Clara put down her fork, not pretending to eat. "You don't know me. How can you be so sure about something so big? I know you get up early to check your animals, even in bad weather. I know you fixed a loose barn board, even though it could have lasted another winter. I know you feed that stray cat by your porch, even if you act like you don't see it." Clara stared, amazed. "How do you know all that?" "Because I've been watching. I see a woman who takes care of everything around her, even when nobody's looking, even when it doesn't help her. That tells me who you are. But marriage, kids, that's not just about being a good person. That's about love, getting along, things that take time." "You're right." I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow, Clara, just to think about the chance that sometimes your heart knows what it wants before your head catches up. His words felt true in a way Clara couldn't ignore. She studied his face in the dim light, seeing laugh lines and the careful way he moved, like a big animal trying not to scare smaller ones. Where'd you come from, Silas? Before the mountains, why'd you pick such a lonely life? That's a long story, not a happy one, but you deserve to know. I was a soldier in the war. Led men, saw too many die, came home to a world that wasn't what I fought for. Had a wife, or thought I did. Found out she married my brother, thinking I was dead when my letters stopped. I don't blame her. War changes you, and maybe I wasn't the man she loved anymore. So you came to Montana? Came west looking for something I couldn't name. Found these mountains and felt peace for the first time since the war. Been here 8 years, no regrets. Until I saw you at Fletcher's and realized peace isn't the same as happiness. His honesty took Clara's breath away. I'm not sure I'm who you think I am, she said quietly. I'm not asking you to be anyone but you. Clara, that's enough. They finished eating in quiet. And when Clara packed the dishes, Silas pulled out a silver knife in a leather sheath, its bone handle worn but cared for. This was my dad's, he said. He gave it to me when I was 18, said it was a man's job to protect what matters. I want you to have it. Clara pulled back. I can't take something so special. You can, and you should. Trouble's coming, Clara. I feel it in how the animals act, see it in signs most wouldn't notice. Those cattle thieves aren't random. They're organized, bold. A woman alone needs every edge. I've got my dad's rifle, and I know how to use it. I don't doubt it, but a rifle's no good if someone sneaks close. This knife saved me before. It might save you. Clara took the knife, her hands shaking a little. It felt solid, balanced, like a real weapon. Thank you, she said. One more thing. Silas pulled a wrapped cloth from his horse. Found this yesterday? Clara unwrapped it to find a piece of her blue-flowered dress from church. Her stomach dropped. Where'd you find this? Caught on a branch by your South Pasture Creek. Someone's watching you, Clara, and not from a safe distance like me. This was torn recently. Clara felt sick, knowing someone had been close enough to rip her dress. You think it's the cattle thieves? I think someone's learning your habits, watching when you're alone. You shouldn't be here by yourself anymore. His words felt heavy like a storm cloud. Her safe ranch suddenly felt open, weak. What are you saying? I'm saying it's time to accept help you've been refusing. Jimmy Patterson's a good guy, but he's not enough to handle men who live by violence. I am, Clara believed him. His voice carried a sureness that came from facing danger before. I won't leave my land, she said firmly. Nobody's asking you to. But there's a difference between being brave and being reckless. A smart person knows when to take help. Clara looked at the stars, now feeling dangerous instead of friendly. If I let you help, what's that mean? I'd move my camp closer, watch your ranch better. We'd work together to keep your cows safe, your land secure, and I'd have your back when you ride far out. In return, I get a chance to prove what I saw at Fletcher's wasn't just a lonely man's dream. Clara felt her walls cracking. Her practical side said to take his help, his skills could save her ranch. But letting him in meant opening her life to things she wasn't sure she could handle. I need time to think, she said, of course. But don't take too long, Clara. Winter's coming. And it brings out the worst in desperate men. As Clara rode home, the bear in her pocket and the knife at her side, she knew her life was about to change forever. The question wasn't if Silas would be part of it, but if she was brave enough to let him, Clara decided during a sleepless night. The torn dress fabric sat on her nightstand like a warning, and every creak in the house made her grab her rifle. By morning, she knew pride wasn't worth losing everything. She found Silas at the north fence, sitting on a log, his stallion grazing nearby, a small campfire smoking. He'd spent the night close enough to watch her ranch, but far enough to respect her space. You look like you've made up your mind, he said as she walked up, leading Storm. I have. You can move your camp to my land. The old line shack by the creek has shelter and a good view of the house. In return, you help me protect what's mine. And what about what I said at Fletcher's? Clara blushed but looked him in the eye. We take that day by day. I won't make promises I'm not ready for, and you won't either. But I'm open to seeing what happens, as long as we're honest. Silas stood, and for a second Clara thought he might hug her. Instead, he offered his hand, like at Fletcher's, formal but full of meaning. Partners, then, he said. Partners, Clara agreed, shaking his hand, feeling something click into place. like a puzzle piece fitting perfectly. Silas moved to the line shack in 2 days and started making Clara's ranch safer. He worked like he knew both the land and how bad guys think. Clara watched, impressed. He strengthened corral gates, moved firewood to double as cover, and set up spots to see anyone coming. Every change looked normal but made the ranch ready for trouble. "You really were a soldier," Clara said on the 3rd day. Finding him studying the house like someone planning an attack. "Company commander, 2nd Colorado Infantry," he said, not looking up. "Learned how to read land and guess what men do when they're up to no good. Do you miss it? The Army life?" Silas thought about it. "Miss some things. The clear purpose, the brotherhood, feeling like you're doing something big. Don't miss the dying or being responsible for other people's lives." "Is that why you went to the mountains? To get away from responsibility?" "Partly. Also got tired of being called a hero when I felt like a guy who just got lucky surviving." He looked at her, and Clara saw old pain in his eyes. "Sometimes you need to be alone to fix what's broken inside you." Clara got that. She'd built her life around proving she could handle anything alone. "And now?" she asked. "Now I think I've been alone long enough to want to care about someone else more than myself." His honesty made Clara's chest tight. She switched to practical stuff. "Show me what you've seen. If we're working together, I need to know what we're up against." Silas took her to a spot overlooking the south approach, where the creek gave cover to anyone watching the house. He pointed out faint boot prints, spots where men had sat for a long time, and a hidden campfire's remains. "At least 3, maybe 4 men," he said. "They've been watching you for a week, maybe more. Not regular thieves, professional scouts." "Scouts for what?" "For someone planning something big. Your cows are just part of it." Silas studied a boot print in dried mud. "This boot's seen walking, not ranch work. These aren't local guys turned bad. They're part of something bigger." Clara felt cold despite the sun. "What do we do?" "We show them you're not easy to hit. Change your routine so they can't predict you. And get ready in case they stop watching and start acting." That night, Clara got a taste of what a real partner was like in the dangerous frontier. Silas insisted on cooking dinner, saying his years alone taught him tricks that might surprise her. Clara agreed, curious and liking the cozy feeling of sharing meals. He didn't disappoint. His venison steaks were perfect, seasoned just right. The wild onions and potatoes had flavors she'd never tasted, and the coffee was better than hers. "Where'd you learn to cook like this?" she asked, amazed. "Had to eat well to stay strong in the mountains. Got tired of plain beans after 8 years. An old crow woman, Singing Bird, taught me which plants to eat and how to cook them." "You know the tribes?" "Some. Mountain folks. Indian and white, no survival means respecting the land and each other. The Crow have lived here forever. Made sense to learn from them instead of starting over." Clara realized mountain men weren't what she'd heard, hostile or totally alone. Silas was more complex. "What else did Singing Bird teach you?" "How to read weather better than a book, which plants heal or kill, how to move through forests without messing up animal patterns." Silas paused, thinking. "Most importantly, she taught me loneliness isn't the same as choosing to be alone, and being alone isn't the same as being left behind." That sounds like hard-earned wisdom. It was. "When I came to the mountains, I was running from everything. War, betrayal, feeling like I failed at what mattered. Took me years to see I wasn't running away but towards something I couldn't name." "And what was that?" Silas looked at her, his eyes intense. "Peace with myself. Knowing my worth isn't what others expect, but how I live up to what's right. Now I think the next step is sharing that peace with someone who gets its value and cost. Horses approaching, cut them off." Silas moved fast, putting himself between Clara and the sound, checking for cover and escape routes. "Expecting anyone?" he asked quietly. "No, but neighbors sometimes stop by after dinner." Clara went for her rifle. "Could be Doc or the Pattersons." It was Jimmy and his brother Tom, their horses sweaty from a hard ride. Jimmy looked serious, and Tom, usually chatty, was pale. "Evening, Clara, Mr. McGraw," Jimmy said, nodding to Silas. "Sorry to come late, but we've got trouble." "What kind?" Clara asked, already guessing. "Someone hit the Anderson place last night. Took 30 cows, burned their barn. John Anderson tried to stop them and got shot in the shoulder. He'll live, but it was close." Clara's face went white. The Anderson ranch was close, and John was one of the best ranchers around. If thieves could hit him, nobody was safe. "How many men?" Silas asked, sounding like he'd asked that question in battles before. "John says at least 6, maybe more." They knew exactly where to hit and got out fast. Not just rustlers, organized like soldiers. Clara and Silas shared a look, both knowing the danger was real now. "There's more," Tom said. "Sheriff Walsh is forming a posse to track them. He wants all able men to help." Clara saw Jimmy's problem. As the oldest son, he had to protect his mom's farm, but he also had to help the community. "I'll go with the posse," Silas said. "I know the mountains better than most and have tracked men who don't want to be found." "And leave Clara alone?" Jimmy asked, clearly torn. "I won't be alone," Clara said firmly. "I've got my rifle, I know my land, and I'm not helpless." But even she knew that wasn't totally true. Regular thieves were one thing, but an organized group was another. The question was whether the town needed Silas more than she did. They argued for an hour, Jimmy worried about Clara, Tom saying the posse needed every tracker. Clara watched Silas, trying to read his calm face. Finally, she decided, Silas goes with the posse. "These men threaten everyone, and stopping them helps my ranch as much as anyone's." "Clara, that's not—" Jimmy started. "It's sensible," she cut in. "These aren't random thieves. They're dangerous and getting worse. The best way to protect my ranch is to catch them before they hit again." Silas nodded, but Clara saw he didn't like leaving her. "She's right," he said. "But I don't like leaving her alone with so much unknown. Then we make sure she's not alone," Jimmy said, relieved. "Tom and I can take turns staying here while you're gone. Ma won't mind," Tom added. "She's worried about Clara anyway." Clara wanted to argue, to say she didn't need babysitting, but the torn dress fabric stopped her. "All right," she said, "but only until this is over." The next morning, Clara watched Silas get ready to leave, her chest heavy with worry. In just a few days, she'd gotten used to him being around, more than just a helper. Seeing him check his guns and saddle his stallion made her anxious, not for herself, but for him. "Be careful," she said. "Those men already shot someone." "I will." "You too." Silas touched her hand gently. "Jimmy's a good guy and Tom's smarter than most his age. Listen if they say something's wrong." "I will." "And Silas," Clara said, meeting his intense eyes, "when you get back, we talk about the future. All of it, not just the partnership." "All right." After Silas left with the posse, Clara worked hard to keep fear away, fixing fences, moving cows closer to the house. Jimmy arrived after breakfast, apologizing but glad to help. "Anything specific you need?" he asked as they walked to the barn. "Check the north fence. Some posts are loose, and winter'll wreck them if we don't fix them. And let's move the cows near the house to watch them better." It felt odd giving Jimmy orders, knowing he liked her, but he acted professional, following her lead and offering good ideas. As they fixed fence posts, Clara thought about the partnerships she'd had lately. Jimmy was reliable and kind, but working with him felt like managing, not teamwork. With Silas, every job was a shared challenge, respecting her skills and ideas. The difference wasn't just feelings. It was about respect. "Clara," Jimmy said at lunch, trying to sound casual, "I hope you know what you're doing with that mountain man." "What do you mean?" she asked, setting her coffee down carefully. "He's not the staying kind. Guys like that come and go, leaving broken hearts and empty promises. And you know this how?" Jimmy looked uneasy. "I don't know for sure, but I know you. Clara, you deserve better than some drifter who'll vanish when things get tough." Clara's anger flared, not just at Jimmy's nerve, but at how he misunderstood her and Silas. "What I deserve, Jimmy, is to choose my own life without explaining it. Silas has shown me more respect in weeks than most men do in years, and I won't let you question him when you don't know him." "I'm just looking out for you," Jimmy said. "We all are." "I know, but looking out doesn't mean deciding for me." That evening, as Jimmy left and Tom arrived for the night watch, Clara missed Silas more than she expected. She'd built her life on being independent, but getting used to sharing decisions and meals with Silas showed her self-reliance might not be enough. Tom was quieter, whittling on the porch while Clara read by lamplight. They talked a little, weather, cows, town news, but mostly shared a comfy silence. "Miss Clara," Tom said during a quiet moment, "can I ask something maybe not my business?" "You can ask." "I might not answer. Why didn't you ever marry? You're pretty smart, tough. Any guy would be lucky, but you've said no to every good man around." Clara thought about it seriously. Usually that question annoyed her, like marriage was what every woman should want. But Tom, only 20 and curious, not judging, made it feel like he really wanted to understand. I guess I never met anyone who made me want to change what I've built here, she said. Marriage means sharing decisions, fitting your life to someone else's. I hadn't found anyone worth that. And now, Clara looked up, surprised by his insight. Now I'm thinking maybe the right partnership doesn't mean giving up who you are. Maybe it means becoming better because of someone else. Because of the mountain man? Because I might have been wrong about what marriage really means? Tom nodded, going back to his whittling. Clara tried to read, but her thoughts kept drifting to Silas's gray eyes and gentle hands. The attack came 3 nights later, just after midnight. Clara woke to Storm's sharp whinny and the sound of restless horses. She grabbed her rifle before she was fully awake, years of living alone making her move fast. Tom was on the porch, rifle ready, his young face tight with focus. "How many?" Clara whispered, joining him. "Can't tell. At least 3, maybe more." Coming from the south, using the creek for cover, like Mr. McGraw said. Clara felt grim pride that they'd guessed the approach right. But fear took over. She and Tom were facing real criminals with just his young skills and her grit. "Can you see them to shoot?" "Not yet. They're staying in shadows." Clara made a quick call, using Silas's lessons. "Take the porch corner to cover the creek. I'll go to the barn to watch the corral and horses. Clara, maybe we should—" "No time for maybes, Tom. They're here, and we deal with it." Clara moved to the barn, carrying her rifle and Silas's knife. The knife's weight comforted her, tying her to Silas. The first gunshot broke the quiet like glass, and Clara knew her careful life was about to face a real test. The fight lasted less than 10 minutes, but felt like forever. Tom shot with steady aim, better than his age suggested. Clara's spot in the barn loft gave her clear shots, and her rifle hit hard every time she fired. The raiders didn't expect such a fight. After Tom's shots took down at least one, and Clara's position kept them from getting close, they ran off into the dark like smoke. "They're gone," Tom called, his voice shaky from his first real fight. Clara stayed put, listening for tricks. When she was sure they were gone, she climbed down, legs wobbly from fear and focus. "You did good, Tom," she said on the porch. "Your dad would be proud. Did we get any?" "At least wounded one, maybe killed. There's blood where you shot, and I heard a yell when my 3rd shot hit." Tom nodded. But Clara saw the weight of maybe killing someone hit him. Her dad once said good people should feel that weight. Only those who feel nothing are dangerous. "What now?" Tom asked. "We wait for morning, check the damage, tell Sheriff Walsh what happened, and hope Silas and the posse got the main group." Morning showed how bad it was. A dead raider lay by the creek, Tom's shot deadly accurate. But searching him changed everything. He wasn't dressed like a typical thief. His clothes were fancy, boots expensive, weapons top-notch. His wallet had more money than most folks saw in a year, and a folded paper that made Clara's blood freeze. "Wanted, Colonel Samuel McGraw, 2nd Colorado Infantry." It read. "Presumed dead after Battle of Glorieta Pass. $5,000 reward for proof of death or capture. Contact Army Intelligence, Denver." Below was a blurry photo, but it was clearly Silas. Younger, no beard, in a Union uniform, but definitely him. "Miss Clara," Tom said, reading over her shoulder. "That's a lot of money." Clara stared at the poster, her mind racing. If Silas was a dead colonel with a big reward, the men watching her weren't thieves. They were bounty hunters, using rustling as a cover to find him. "We need to tell Sheriff Walsh," she said, tucking the poster away. "This changes everything." The ride to town took 2 hours. Clara wrestling with feelings of betrayal, worry, and a fierce need to protect Silas. By the time they reached the sheriff, she'd made some hard choices about him and her heart. Silas came back at dawn on the 5th day, riding his stallion, looking tired and favoring his left side. Clara saw him from the kitchen window and felt relief so strong her knees wobbled. Whatever they had to face, he was alive. She met him at the corral, seeing blood on his sleeve and wear from rough days. "You're hurt," she said, reaching for the stain. "Just a graze, it'll heal." Silas took her hand, his warmth steady despite her shock. "Heard about the attack. Tom said you held your own." "Tom did most of it. I just shot from the barn." Clara studied him, looking for signs he knew she'd found his secret. "Did you find the men?" "We found them, or they found us." His face darkened. "Lost 2 men in the fight. These weren't regular thieves, Clara. They were trained, armed, and fought like they had nothing to lose." "I know." Her tone made Silas look closer, and she saw him realize their talk was about to get heavy. "We need to talk inside, where Tom can't hear." Silas nodded, looking like he'd been dreading this. They sat at the kitchen table, where they'd shared meals and dreams. Clara put the wanted poster between them, watching Silas read his own name and the $5,000 reward. "Colonel Samuel McGraw, 2nd Colorado Infantry," she said. "Presumed dead after Glorieta Pass. $5,000 for proof you're dead or alive." Silas stared at the poster, hands folded. "Where'd you find this?" "In a raider's pocket." "They weren't thieves, Silas. They were bounty hunters looking for you. And now you know why I've been alone in the mountains for 8 years? Clara leaned forward, needing the truth. "I know what the poster says, what the army thinks, but I want the truth from you." Silas stood, looking out the window toward the mountains. "The truth is, Colonel Samuel McGraw died at Glorieta Pass, like the army says. He died when he saw his mistake killed every man he led. Tom's dad said you stayed to cover their retreat. That's not a mistake. The mistake was taking the mission. We were supposed to scout Confederate moves, but I let pride push me to fight a bigger force. 43 men trusted me to bring them home. We were outnumbered, trapped, facing an enemy ready for us. But you survived. A Ute war party found me, barely alive. Their medicine man saved me. I spent 6 months healing, learning the army thought I was dead with my men. So you stayed dead. What else could I do? Go back and tell the families I got their sons, husbands, fathers killed because I was arrogant? Samuel McGraw failed as a leader and a man. Silas McGraw's been trying to make up for it for 8 years. Clara understood now. The gentleness, the care for her safety, the hesitation to push her. It came from a man who blamed himself for failing those he loved. And now the army wants you back. They want to close their books. Know what happened. Dead or alive doesn't matter as much as certainty. Clara stood beside him, seeing the guilt etched in his face. "What do you want?" "I want the impossible. To build a life with you, help run this ranch. Maybe give you those sons I foolishly said I saw." He touched her face gently. "But wanting and having aren't the same when bounty hunters will kill to get me." Clara held his hand against her cheek. "They're only a problem if someone turns you in. As long as your secret's safe, you're just a mountain man helping a neighbor." "Clara, $5,000 is more than most folks here see ever. Even good people might turn me in thinking it's their duty. Then we make sure they don't get the chance." Silas looked stunned. "You're talking about hiding a fugitive. That's a big crime, Clara. You could go to jail. I'm talking about protecting the man I love from people who want him for reasons that aren't about justice." Clara hadn't meant to say love, but seeing she might lose him made her sure. She'd been cautious, but now she was ready to risk everything. "Don't try to talk me out of this, Silas McGraw or Samuel McGraw or whoever. I choose you, us, whatever it costs." Silas pulled her close, desperate, like a man who thought happiness was gone forever. "I love you too," he whispered, "more than I thought I could after what I've done." They held each other in the morning light, two people who found what they were missing, but Clara knew their troubles weren't over. "We need a plan," she said, stepping back. "Those hunters won't quit, and word about the reward is probably spreading. I could vanish, go deeper into the mountains, maybe Canada, where the army can't reach, and leave me wondering if you're alive. That's not a fix, Silas. That's giving up. Then what? We fight. Stay here. Build our life. Face whatever comes together. That's not realistic, Clara. We can't fight the army. Maybe not, but we can fight bounty hunters and show anyone eyeing that reward they'll have to deal with both of us." Silas thought it over, his soldier's mind weighing risks. "That'd mean turning your ranch into a fort, always watching, never safe. Then that's what we do. I'd rather live dangerously with you than safely without you. If the army sends soldiers instead of hunters, we'll face that if it happens. I won't let fear ruin what we have now." Silas studied her, and Clara saw his fear give way to her same determination. "All right, we stay, fight, build something worth fighting for." Clara pulled her mom's wedding ring from the jewelry box. She'd carried it during the nights waiting for Silas, and now she knew why. "Then let's make it official," she said, holding out the ring. "Silas McGraw, will you marry me?" His surprise turned to a smile that erased years of pain. "Clara Dawson, I thought you'd never ask." The sun rose over the mountains, promising winter and challenges. But in their kitchen, Clara and Silas sealed their promise with a kiss full of hope, courage, and love strong enough to face anything. The wedding was 3 days later in Clara's kitchen, Sheriff Walsh officiating, Tom Patterson as witness. It was small to keep Silas's secret safe. Ellen Patterson brought a cake, saying no wedding was complete without one. She also brought Clara's mom's wedding dress, fixed to fit her. "Your mom would want you to wear this," Ellen said, helping Clara into the ivory silk that smelled faintly of lavender. "She said it'd bring luck." Clara saw her mom's face in the mirror. Same green eyes, same stubborn chin, same mix of strength and softness. The dress fit like it was made for her, like her family's blessing for her future. When Silas saw her, his face went from nervous to amazed, like he was seeing something holy. "You're beautiful," he whispered, taking her hand. "We are beautiful," she said, looking into his gray eyes. Her new home. Sheriff Walsh kept it short but heartfelt, his rough voice soft as he talked about marriage in a land where survival needed teamwork. "Do you, Clara, take this man as your husband, to stand together in good and bad, sharing life's joys and burdens?" "I do," Clara said, her voice steady. "And you, Silas, take this woman as your wife, to protect, cherish, and be her partner in the life you build." "I do," Silas said, his deep voice sure. When Walsh said they were married, Silas kissed Clara gently, like a man who'd given up on happiness and found it. Tom cheered, Ellen cried, and for a moment the kitchen was full of joy that made the world seem far away. But even with cake and strong coffee, Clara knew their safety was temporary. The bounty hunters were still out there, and Silas's secret was known to too many. That evening, Walsh pulled them aside. "I'm happy for you," he said, but worry showed through. "But I'm concerned about what's next." "What do you mean?" Clara asked, already guessing. "Word about your marriage will spread no matter how careful we are. People talk, especially about Clara Dawson getting married. When the wrong people hear, you'll be in big danger." "We know the risks," Silas said, "but they're worth it. The hunters who hit Anderson's and your ranch aren't the only ones after you. My Denver contacts say 3 groups want that reward. Deserters, professional hunters, and maybe Confederate sympathizers who never let the war go." Clara felt a chill. 3 groups? Anyone's bad enough. All 3 fighting for the same prize is a recipe for trouble that could hurt innocent folks. "What do you suggest?" Clara asked. "Take the $5,000 and start over somewhere safer. It'd buy you a good life anywhere." "We've talked about that," Silas said. "It's not an option." Walsh nodded, still worried. "Then get ready for a siege. These men won't quit just because you're married. Having a wife makes you more vulnerable. They can use Clara against you." Clara felt her wedding joy fade. Marrying Silas made her his weak spot, a target for anyone after him. "What do? We make this place a fortress," Silas said. "Set watch schedules, clear sight lines, stock supplies for a long fight, and hope winter hits hard to keep hunters away until spring. Cold and snow have saved mountain men for years," Walsh said. "Might save you too." After Walsh left, Clara and Silas stood on their porch looking at the snowy mountains. "Second thoughts?" Silas asked, his arm around her. "About marrying you?" "Never. About the danger? Every second. We could leave, take what we can carry, hide in the mountains where no hunter would look, and spend our lives running, never knowing if someone will spot you for $5,000? That's not living, Silas." Clara turned to him, her anchor in this wild world. "I married you to build something worth fighting for, not to hide. Then we'd better get ready for war." That night, in her parents' old bed, Clara listened to Silas breathe, memorizing this quiet moment. Tomorrow, they'd turn their home into a fort. Soon, men would come for her husband. But tonight, she was Mrs. Silas McGraw, safe in his arms, love holding back the dark. Outside, the first snow fell, covering their tracks and blessing their marriage with mountain protection. The attack came 2 weeks later, on a snowy morning so cold it hurt to breathe. Clara woke to Storm's whinny, and Silas moving silently, signaling big trouble. "How many?" she whispered, grabbing her rifle. "At least 6, maybe more." using the snow for cover, moving like a trained team. Silas checked his guns like a soldier. These aren't the same hunters, Clara. These are pros. Fear hit Clara, but so did determination to protect their life. They'd spent 2 weeks making the ranch a fort, reinforced windows, cleared cover, firing spots ready. "Positions," Silas said, his voice commanding. Clara went to the window watching the south, Silas to the spot covering the barn. They'd practiced this, but facing real killers was scarier than straw targets. The first shot broke the quiet, followed by bullets whistling close. Clara saw muzzle flashes from 3 spots, her heart sinking. They were up against a planned attack they'd feared. "They're pinning us down while others flank," Silas yelled over gunfire. "Watch the creek." Clara spotted 2 men moving sneakily by the creek where she and Silas first talked. She aimed carefully and shot, 1 man falling. The fight became a pattern: shoot, reload, watch. Clara fell into a rhythm, almost automatic, part of her amazed at how she'd adapted to fighting for her life. "Clara!" Silas shouted, and she turned to see a man coming from the barn aiming at her. Silas's shot dropped him, but it gave 2 others a chance to reach the house. Breaking glass meant their safe home was breached. "They're inside," Clara said, calm despite her fear. "Kitchen door," Silas said. "Fall back to the root cellar like we planned." The cellar, her dad's addition, was their last stand. Stone walls, 1 entrance, easy to defend. They moved together, covering each other. Clara heard footsteps in her kitchen, furniture crashing, angry voices planning to get them. They reached the cellar as a hunter appeared at the kitchen stairs. Clara's shot sent him back, but more were searching above. "How long can we hold them?" Clara asked, settling behind barrels. "Depends on their patience and ammo," Silas said, checking his bullets. "But if they burn the house—" "They won't," Clara cut in. "They need you alive for the full reward. A burned body won't prove you're Samuel McGraw." Silas nodded, but Clara saw him calculating worst-case scenarios. Footsteps above meant the hunters found the cellar door. A voice called, calm and confident. "McGraw, this is Captain Marcus Thornton, ex-Confederate Army. Time for a talk." Silas froze, his face showing recognition or old hate. "You know him," Clara whispered. "Know of him." "Confederate officer who interrogated Union prisoners. If he's here, it's not just about money. Some never accepted the war's end. They want old scores settled," Thornton spoke again. "I know you're there, Colonel McGraw, with your new bride. Sweet story, war hero finding love. Almost makes you believe in second chances." Clara's heart chilled. If Thornton knew they were married, he had big connections. "Here's the deal, Colonel. Surrender, and I promise your wife stays safe, back to her quiet ranch life. You face the Army's justice for deserters." "I'm not a deserter," Silas shouted, his voice strong. "No? What's abandoning your post, letting the Army think you're dead, while your country needed you?" Clara saw Thornton's words hit Silas, digging into old guilt. "He's manipulating you," she whispered. "Don't let him." But Silas was slipping back to the pain that sent him to the mountains. "Sil?" Clara said firmly, using his chosen name. "Look at me." His gray eyes met hers. The eyes of the man who carved her bare, fixed her gait, loved her from the start. "I don't care about 8 years ago," she said loud enough for Thornton. "I don't care about battles, men who died, or mistakes you can't fix. I care about you now, our life, the future we chose when we married. Clara, no. You listen, Silas McGraw. You're not that soldier anymore. You're my husband, my partner, the father of our kids to come." Thornton's voice cut in, annoyed. "Sweet, but it won't change facts, Colonel. 2 minutes to surrender, or I get you out myself." Clara made a clear, bold choice. "Captain Thornton, this is Clara McGraw with a counteroffer." "Clara—" "No," Silas started, but she stopped him with a look full of her 6 years of ranch-running strength. "I'm listening. Mrs. McGraw, you want my husband for something from 8 years ago, but that man's gone. Samuel McGraw died at Glorietta Pass, like the Army says. The man here is Silas McGraw, mountain man, rancher, my husband. Words won't change the reward. Maybe not, but law might. You're on our land, threatening us in our home. That makes you the criminal." Thornton laughed, but it was cold. "Nice try, but words don't stop bullets." "Maybe not, but they might stop your reward. How do you prove you've got Samuel McGraw with no witnesses except a wife who'll swear her husband's someone else?" Silence above made Clara hope she'd shaken Thornton. "The Army can verify identity," he said, less sure. "With an 8-year-old photo and bounty hunters who never saw the man? Good luck convincing anyone. Clara felt Silas's amazement as she fought with words, not guns. Without proof, she went on. You've got a mountain man in the wrong place. Try explaining that to whoever pays you. Voices argued above, and Clara hoped doubt was sinking in. But hope made her forget desperate men do desperate things. Gunfire exploded outside, followed by Thornton cursing and running feet. Then Sheriff Walsh's voice shouted for the hunters to drop their weapons. Cavalry's here, Silas said, smiling for the first time since the attack. How'd they know? Tom Patterson. I told him if shooting started, ride to town for the sheriff no matter what. The fight above was quick. Walsh brought his deputy and a dozen townsfolk, ranchers, shopkeepers, neighbors who wouldn't let outsiders threaten their own. When it stopped, Walsh called, Clara, Silas, it's safe. They climbed out to find the kitchen full of townspeople, Thornton and his men guarded by the barn. Seeing her neighbors protect her home nearly made Clara cry. How many did we lose? Silas asked, thinking like a soldier. None of ours. They lost 3, including the one you shot in the barn, Walsh said, studying Silas. Question is, what do we do with the rest? Clara saw this moment would shape their future. Thornton glared from the barn, his face full of hate. That depends, she said loud enough for all to hear, on whether Thornton wants to explain to a judge why he attacked a ranch, killed animals and tried to murder us in our home. She stepped closer to Thornton. Or he can take his men and leave Montana forever, knowing if they come back, they'll be shot as the criminals they are. Clara, that's not legal, Walsh said quietly. Neither was what they did, Sheriff. Sometimes frontier justice is what works here, she faced Thornton, seeing his rage and realization of failure. Here's the deal, Captain, she said, mocking his title. Take your men and go. Tell everyone Colonel Samuel McGraw died at Glorietta Pass, like the Army says. Anyone looking for him here will find only graves and empty-handed hunters. If I refuse? Thornton asked. You face a judge for attempted murder, property damage, and plotting crimes against us. I bet he'll love hearing about Confederate officers seeking revenge years after the war. Clara saw Thornton realize he'd lost, accept defeat, or face worse. This isn't over, he said, but it sounded weak. Yes, it is, Clara said firmly. It ended at Appomattox. You just didn't want to see it. 2 hours later, Clara and Silas watched Thornton's men ride away, guarded by armed townsfolk until they left Montana. Is it really over? Clara asked, barely believing it. This part, Silas said. Others might come, but word will spread. Most hunters want easier targets than a ranch backed by a town. Clara leaned into Silas, amazed at how far they'd come since Fletcher's. The woman who loved being alone found strength in partnership. What now? We rebuild, get ready for winter, work on those sons I said I saw. Clara laughed, full of relief and joy. About that, your vision might have been right. Silas's hope lit up his face. Are you saying? I'm saying come spring. The Double D Ranch will need a bigger house and more patience for sleepless nights. Silas lifted her, spinning her with pure joy. I told you I saw them, he whispered. Yes, you did. Now let's see if mountain men make good dads. With the right teacher, I bet they do. 6 months later, Clara watched Silas build a cradle with the same care he gave everything important. The rancher who swore off marriage was now a wife, soon a mom. The mountain man, once haunted, found peace in love and purpose in protecting it. The carved bear sat on the mantel, joined by a horse, a cabin, a woman in a hat, pieces Silas made during long winter nights. Each told their story, the foundation of their life. Outside, spring melted the snow, new grass sprouting. The seasons promised growth, just like their love. Sometimes your heart knows before your brain, Clara thought. Sometimes one moment changes everything. And sometimes the wildest partnerships are the ones that matter most, not just for them, but for the kids who'd carry their story forward. In a few months, their first son would be born into a safer, richer world because of their courage. He'd grow up hearing how his parents met, how his dad saw him before he existed, how his mom chose love over safety. It was a good story, Clara thought. One worth telling through generations who'd worked this land, faced their challenges, and learned that the greatest courage isn't standing alone. It's standing together. As Silas finished the cradle, Clara felt their baby move, a reminder of the future they fought for, one choice at a time. The mountain man saw their sons, and now it was time to meet the first and start their next chapter.